a pleasure to have you guys here. Hey, don't forget to check me out at twitter.com/lore reloaded. Definitely don't go there if you get upset, especially if you don't like my type of joking, or if you don't like full octane me, like real me, not just Star Trek Lore Reloaded me. Also, twitch.tv/Lore Reloaded. Been having a lot of fun there. You guys should definitely come out and hang out. Let's go ahead and discuss a couple of things, and I'm trying to multitask while I talk to you guys, because that's always the brightest thing to do. Let's go ahead and break down a few of the common threads that I am consistently seeing when it comes to Star Trek Picard. And let me know how audio levels should be good, but let me know. There is a large divide, I think, between a lot of people who like Star Trek and a lot of people who don't. And the divide is in how they are looking at Star Trek Picard as a storytelling medium, how they are looking at the story that's being told, how it's being filmed, the cinematography, the portrayal of the actions versus the actions themselves. And we are going to do a review, but I think it's important that we first break this piece down and then get into it. The more I watch Star Trek Picard, the more I see a lot of things that occurred in Nostalgic Trek. I know a lot of people hate me calling it that. That's what I call it. I don't think there's anything that's happened in Star Trek Picard that hasn't happened in the original series, TNG, Deep Space Nine, Voyager, or even Enterprise. Probably not the animated series, because that was just garbage. The problem is, and this is distinct from Discovery. Discovery definitely had themes that were not a part of what we saw before and were massively different, almost to an insulting degree, but not so much for Picard. The problem is how these things are portrayed, how these things are filmed or photographs. Filming is basically photography, and how the story itself is being told. So, for instance, one of the greatest examples, and I think no, it's not the greatest example, but an example, and we'll get into it when we start breaking down the specific episode, is the post-traumatic stress syndrome or PTSD that Picard has. How he views the Borg, how he reacts to the Borg. You can see that versus how we see it in Nemesis. And they are different portrayals of the PTSD. They're different ways of telling that story. 7 of 9, Fall from Grace of a Hero, is another example, I think, of that you see, where you have the story itself, the content of the story being the same, but the story itself and the context being dramatically different. Now, I've often, and do still, refer to Star Trek Picard as the Expanse. The Expanse Light. So it's Picard with it's Star Trek skin with a Expanse Light effect added to it. A lot of people have taken that wrong because the Expanse is actually pretty deep. It's very integrated, and it has a noir style. Some of it has a noir style feel to it. When I call Star Trek the Expanse Light, what I mean is they're taking aspects of Expanse and putting in it. That it's not the Expanse, because the Expanse is the Expanse. It's the best writing when it comes to the Expanse. They're just trying to copy elements of it and somehow meld Star Trek, Nostalgia Trek, JJ Trek, and this new Disco Trek, and put them together. And that works for some, and it doesn't for others. So when we're looking at this and we're going through it, we just have to first accept that it's something different. And then we also have to base it on how we feel about that difference, I guess is what I'm trying to say. you know, I don't know. I'm still trying to process how I feel about it too under that new scope, because I'm not sure I like it. I don't hate it. And there is one other piece to it, and I want to bring this up. And then I'll take a look at your comments and we will get more into it. Where is it? I got this on Twitter by Jose E. Aguilar. And he said this when I was talking about it. I think it's closer, and this is talking about Star Trek Picard, this last episode. I think it's closer to Nicholas Meyer's vision. If we're comparing it with the wow, I don't know how to read. I think it's closer to the Nicholas Meyer vision if we're comparing it to the past. There are a few parallels with Star Trek 6. Star Trek 6. Additionally, both Meyer and Michael Chabon are both Holmesians and both said that Arthur Conan Doyle influenced their Star Trek in some way. That is pretty on par, and it did make me think about all of this thing, because all of what's going on. Because Star Trek 6 was actually very controversial. It was a dramatic shift of how Star Trek was portrayed. Gene Roddenberry, the beginning... Well, here's effectively what happened. On Star Trek 6, Gene Roddenberry's vision of humanity was thrown out to a moderate degree, we'll say. And then, from that point on, let's see. Let me see this. When did Star Trek 6 come out? December 6, 1991. When did Season 3 TNG come out? Season 3 was in 1989. Interesting. So that was the beginning of the end of the pure Gene Roddenberry's vision. Season 3 TNG and on, as well as Star Trek 6. And then we've just seen a slow fade ever since then. And so when we're looking at Picard, I really honestly just have to accept that, and I think everybody does, honestly, that we're looking at Chabon's vision versus that of Berman's, or even Abrams. The shift is complete. I don't think there was a civil war. There was a civil war back then with Roddenberry and the others, but for this, if there was a civil war, it's over. It's now Chabon Trek. And we just have to accept that new style. And if you don't like that style, then you don't watch. You don't support it. Unless you're me, when you are required to for what you do for a living. But again, I don't know that I am 100% against it. So with that out of the way, let's go ahead and take a look at what you guys are saying. Then we're going to begin the episode breakdown. Based on feedback, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through the breakdown completely, the scene breakdown at least. Then I'll look at what you guys are saying. I'm not going to let you stop me midway through my my analysis. People also don't like is in fact a safety word. It's a comfort word that people say while talking. And it is something that you need to not do if you're talking in front of a large group of people. Don't forget to hit that like button as well. Rafi drinking from the bottle on the bridge is genuinely the worst writing ever in Trek. Having her alcoholism at all gives nothing to the show of her character or her character. We'll get into that. Do you people really not understand how depression displays, especially for parents who is estranged from her family due to her work, says Gopher 697, missing the point entirely. Look up, Gopher 697, that's the point. It's flying right over your head. The humor made me laugh. Well, that's good. Thank you for the stream. It's helping me through being sick. Well, Deckfish, I'm here for you, buddy. I did the stream specifically because you don't feel well. If you don't like this show, people on Twitter say you're an alt-right chud who doesn't know Trek or a Russian bot, apparently. It is not surprising. People do, in fact, say that, though. Hi, I'm Rafi, and I'm a spaceaholic hooked on Snakeleaf. That is true. This whole series is just a Q fever dream. It is. That is true. Gopher 697 was waiting for me to notice him. Well, I did. I think Trek was a very particular type of sci-fi. Enterprise was the last Trek, I believe. Okay. Is Picard Chabon Trek the next generation? I don't know if you're trying to make a pun there. I'm going to assume that you were. All right, let's get into it. Now, another thing is the storytelling itself doesn't add like a ton here. It's some of the scenes are just going to be like a 3-minute synopsis of what they took 10 minutes to tell you. Whether that's good or bad comes down to your taste. But, well, you guys probably didn't hear that though. Whoa. All right. Make that full screen, hit that pause button. Come all the way over here. Get past the recap. Then I hit the game recording button. I check to make sure that's all there. It is. Hit that button so I can see what you guys are saying. This episode is bringing back old Trek. Yeah, right. This episode is bringing back old Trek. Right. Yeah, it is. It is. Also, not only is this episode bringing back old Trek, but 9/11 was an inside job, folks. All right. So the first scene itself, there's not going to be a ton to really break down from a Trek setting because we're not really... I mean, it's a part of Trek, but it's not... doesn't have anything necessarily crazy to add. We see Saji, however you say her name, is sleeping. She's having a dream. She's a little girl here. I think there are some interesting pieces to look at this from a filmmaking standpoint. I've pointed this out before, but if you notice, the camera is angled oddly. It's actually not straight up, which is telling you that there's something going on. There's something wrong. This is a shorthand for telling you subconsciously that something is off about this entire sequence. Even though we know it's a dream, even though the music is telling us that something's off. We also have the pan. I don't know if this is done on purpose, but something intriguing that I found is if you take a look at the scene we're analyzing here, all of the, I don't know why I'm pointing at the screen. You can't see the screen that I'm pointing at. All of the light is behind her coming down onto the wood. And you even see, it looks like there may be a, what's the word I'm looking for? Sunroof that also has light coming down. But when it comes to her, she's more blanketed in shadow. I don't know if that's done on purpose. Maybe I just caught the frame wrong, but that could be somewhat telling that her past is not what it's supposed to be, that she's more mysterious. That's really all there is to that. You know those channels who can take a scene and just break it down for 20 minutes? I don't know that I could do that. That takes some epic skills, if you ask me. Some epic skills. Yeah, let me turn that off real quick because I don't want CBS to hit me. Let's see. Waiting for it to go. Another piece here is you do see her walking into the lab. There's her dad. The flowers keep coming up. I feel like because of how much emphasis they are putting on these flowers, she sees the flowers quite a bit in her dreams. And the second piece to that is they actually talk about the flowers for like 60 seconds. That's generally not done by accident. Believe it or not, when you're putting a film together, whether it's a microfilm, a short film, a movie, or a series, everything has to matter. You can't just throw things in to have things in. That's bad storytelling if you're doing that. And the emphasis or the show of this, I don't know if maybe it came up before or we're going to see it in the future, but the flowers seem to be very important in this episode. They dedicate, again, like a minute and a half to them, which is still a lot of time to do when you're recanting through all of this. So I don't know if that plays any specific part in the future. If not, I do think it would be bad storytelling. We see her go through the lab. She's trying to sneak through. She's then caught by her dad, who yells at her. And after that, she wakes up and is with Captain, obviously not a bad guy. Let's go ahead and break down that entire scenario right now, and then I'll take your comments, and we're just going to get it out of the way. So she is obviously a synthetic or a synth, and she's dreaming. The I'm a bad guy, but I fell in love with you, and I'm fighting my inner turmoil. This is definitely not cliche as hell, and it hasn't been seen 100 million times. Theorizes that she is having these dreams because subconsciously she knows she's not real, but she thinks that she's a human. And so to somewhat bring that together, the pathways, the heuristic internal pathways, make her dream to try to come to some kind of conclusion on that. Similar to what we saw with the doctor, I forget the episode where he had to make a decision and he chose a friend over a non-friend, and he was just going in circles with it. I don't hate that. I guess a lot of people are going to try to mock it. It doesn't do a lot for me, but it seems realistic enough that I can honestly just... It's just a way to move the plot forward. And so, again, I if people focus on that or get upset about it, I really can't see why. It doesn't... Of all the things to put down here, I can't see why that's even on the list. It's intriguing, and it's sci-fi, and it makes sense to me. But I don't know. What are your guys' thoughts? Let's click back for a second and see. As I said, I'm going to be going back and forth with you wonderful people to get your opinion. I rewatched Timeless of Voyager and found Sith interesting. Harry and Chakotay found it, I guess, interesting. Harry and Chakotay stole a Borg artifact that was rescued by the Federation from the wreck of a Borg cube in the Beta Quadrant. Okay. Nice catch, Chris Wright. Oh, I was talking about that. There was also an episode on DS9 where the Ferengi were transported into Earth's past and were shocked to see people smoking, willingly putting poisonous toxins in their body. While that is true, the era of DS9 and when that occurred is past. We're now 20 years past that. So it just shows the continued devolution of Starfleet, the continued devolution of the Federation. So I understand what you're saying, and that's just saying that you like the DS9 era, that you liked the 2370s? When humanity was at its peak, apparently, but it no longer is. I wasn't impressed with the Soji stuff, but at least it felt like a Romulan plot subversion in Sidious. I'd agree with that. My God, the alt-writers. What? Oh, LOL, this is live. It is live. Darkside Royalty, welcome. 90 seconds in, television is 6 hours in RL. Okay. Captain, obviously not a bad guy. Yep. Yeah, these romances are getting exhausting. I hate the romances. I cannot stand it. When I went bright-eyed... What I want is bright-eyed and best possible future. I want Star Trek. When I want real grim dark, I go for 40K and the like. With Trek going more dark and gritty, I think it's lost a large part of its charm. That's possible. I would agree that there are 74 people watching and 18 likes, not 19. What is up with that? Don't be scared of that like button. Hit it. Bad guy fall in love with Robo Girl in that room because he knew the machine love would escape the wrath of the sister. That's possible. Well, I smoke, and I got my pipe. Well, that just justifies everything. Yeah, you've got to separate lore from the time it's written a bit. I would agree with that. All right. I would agree with that a lot, actually. The original series writing, the lore for that, is so drastically different from Deep Space Nine lore. You can try to make it... You can try to put it together, but it can be a little tough. The love story itself, I'm not really going to go into all of that. The one thing I will say about it is that I do like there's a couple of things here. So it's frustrating because I hate the romance piece of it. I really do. Honest to God, it's useless. It's unnecessary. You're just doing it to pull in a certain segment that no one ever really looked for that in their Trek, but they now will because you're doing it. But in the middle of that, they drop little pieces of lore that are intriguing to me, that add something to the Romulan mythos. Romulans have 3 names. They have a name for foreigners, they have a name for their family, and they have a true name that they give to their love. That's kind of intriguing to me. That's interesting. A lot of people get upset that we are making Romulans elves, or that we're making Vulcans elves or whatever. First off, in the original series, There was all kinds of elf jokes and all kinds of allusions to being an elf by McCoy, so that was something that was used as a slur against Vulcans quite a bit. Additionally, it's derivative, but I don't know that there's anything wrong with it necessarily. We have no reason not to believe that there weren't elven attributes to the Romulans and Romulan society. In fact, I have an entire series that is breaking down Romulan lore episode by episode. I've gotten all the way into In the Pale Moonlight, and I intend to continue. I don't see any inconsistencies necessarily. The way the Samantha Tadaro, one of the most beautiful women in the world, is now a member. Thank you so much. Sorry, I am going to stop for those. But when it comes to Romulans, the storytelling is different, so it feels a little odd or a little disconnected, but there's no complete inconsistency with it. And so the fact that they have a more elven nature, I think, is intriguing. I also let me see if that's the next scene. If not, we're going to wait till we get to that scene. Give me a second. Oh, I didn't know you guys couldn't see what I could see. Well, you weren't missing anything. Nope. All right. So we're not going to get to that scene. Let's move on to this piece. If this will work. Maybe it won't work. Why won't you work? Don't you like working? Don't you like your family? Hold on. Unless my internet was cut off, and I guess I'm not talking to anybody. Nope. Maybe it's just CBS. All right, guys. We are going to wait a quick second. There it is. I don't like Star Trek's Kayle in this. The acting feels off. I don't know. The acting feels weird to me. There's something just not right about it. So we have the scene. Let me pull this up for you wonderful people. Where you have Star Trek's Kayle, you have Legolas, and you have, of course, Picard, who are sitting there having a conversation. Now, the first thing is they're having a conversation about how Maddox died and how his heart just gave up and they couldn't save it. This doesn't make any kind of sense to me at all. Unless Kayle is so off the charts evil. Her name's Agnes, for those who don't watch it. Star Trek's Kayle, for all of this to have gone through the way she said, she would have had to reprogram the EMH, because the EMH was aware that she murdered somebody. She would have had to reprogram the sensors internally of the ship to make sure that the ship didn't pick up on it. And she'd have to reprogram the diagnostic systems that were watching him, that were ensuring that he was staying alive. So these are 4 critical systems that she would have had to bypass all of the lockouts, not get caught doing that, and reprogram them in a way to make them look like this was a natural death. So she would have had to have hacking capabilities. She would have had to have medical knowledge to know what a natural death would look like. And she would have had to have some programming to redo the EMH. So here's the thing. You're going to say, well, Lore, you simpleton. Lore, you idiot. Lore, you magnanimous, fat child. She studied synths. She is the head designer. She is probably the most knowledgeable human at this point when it comes to synthetics. And I would say, well, you ignorant piece of crap who doesn't need to be on my channel, I say to you, good sir, she had trouble figuring out how to use a fucking transporter. The only way that this makes sense is that A, it's bad writing, or B, she's a mastermind. She is more than the sum of her parts. She cannot possibly be this ingenious unless, from the beginning, she had always been some kind of evil, maniacal villain. And perhaps you might not call me names because I have a thriving YouTube channel, which is more than most. So, again, either she's crazy evil or it's just bad writing. Now, the other piece to it is it is possible that this, I don't know, this like person of the ages came out when the Commodore, evil Commodore, mind melded with her. I don't think that's what's going to happen. I think that the evil Commodore mind melded with her to show her how evil she was. But I don't think that, I think really I think the Commodore just showed her what's going to happen. It's possible that the Commodore made her some evil genius. Though I question how she made her a hacker, a medical professional, a coder of the ages. I'll also combat this. Even though she knows everything about synthetics and that she knows a ton when it comes to how the processes of a brain for a android works, doesn't necessarily make her a coder. They're different skill sets, right? For instance, I know how to use a camera fairly decently. I know the rule of thirds. I know framing. I know all kinds of things. I even have some knowledge of lighting. But lighting, you can actually make 6-digit numbers simply lighting sets for a living. Just because I know a little bit about it doesn't mean that I'm a master of it, and doesn't mean I could get away with it to the degree that a master would. So they are different skill sets, and they don't easily transfer over. Another example probably would be I know how to drive, but I'm not a NASCAR driver. A NASCAR driver has a different skill set when you're racing than just a regular driver. There's some interchange there, but it's not completely the same. We also have Joseph Petrick helping out the channel. Thank you so much. Saying that you magnificent beast, stroke the cat, and hashtag makeup. That'll be coming out very shortly along with the Ghostbuster stuff, by the way. I do know the rule of thirds. It's crazy, isn't it? So, we get into Picard's PTSD, how he doesn't trust the Borg. We know that the Borg are still alive. They're still there. So they weren't destroyed in Voyager. And apparently they still have some strength to them. So they are pretty powerful still in this universe, which isn't necessarily out of the realm either. We've seen them in the future, especially in Voyager, where they still existed to some degree or another. So that's not unreasonable. The one thing that does bug me is everybody's calling the Borg cube the artifact. The artifact was a name that was created by Soji, and we weren't given any real reason to believe that anyone else knew it because she had her own personal reasoning for it. It's a minor thing. It is annoying. I actually do like Legolas here as well. So Legolas comes off as... he's the comedic relief to a degree, but he's also... I really think that in this instance, the audience is supposed to be seeing all of this happen through Legolas's eyes. And I do like how that was brought out. I think there's a lot of value there. All right, so let's see what you guys have been saying. Hope you're liking this new way of me first going through it and then talking to you. Let me know your thoughts when it comes to that. Yeah. Sorry, buddy. I thought you wanted to be pet. All right, let's break it down, as it were. I think at the end, Q is going to hand wave everything away. He might. Q is obviously going to appear. I don't think so. Paladin agreeing with me. I kept wondering when she became an MD. Of that, I would agree. If you read the book, you know Jurati was a medical doctor in Starfleet before joining Maddox at the Synth Lab. That's fantastic, over 697. Media should be able to be consumed on its own and should not have to have ancillary things for us to understand it. I shouldn't have to go and read a book to understand why this character can do something. That's called bad storytelling. It's called really bad storytelling. They should have had a line dropped in there. It should be in the media I'm watching. So the fact that you had to go and read random book X to find out why something happened means that the writers failed. Thank you for pointing out that the writers failed. Miles O'Brien was a transporter chief before DS9. Yeah. He was not only a transporter chief, he was also ops, and he worked in the engineering. If O'Brien only needed 20 seconds to figure out a transporter, it can't be that hard. I disagree that it took 20 seconds to figure it out. I'd highly disagree. Elnor is hilarious. Please choose to live. Yeah, we'll get into that. I didn't find that hilarious. I did like that part, though. Discovery probably can't come back from their critiques, re-premiere TV. I think it'd be very hard. I think it'd be extremely hard. That's called milking the cow, Sister Stas. Ooh. I think the last episode will have the USS Verity sent after Picard and the Enterprise. I think so. Here's what I'm gonna. Here's my guess. The last episode either has the Borg cube come alive, because again, they are Chekhov's gunning the heck out of those badges. You know, those blue badges that if they turn green or red or whatever, something bad happens. I think either the Borg the Borg cube is going to activate. I think that we may see Q come back, or I do think Lore. But I don't think we're going to see Lore. I don't think Lore will come back. I honestly don't. The issue with the Borg is they have from the Cthulhu horror. Okay. That's just bad writing. We shouldn't have to do research to fill in an episode. I agree, Whisper. O'Brien was tactical officer on the Rutledge. That is true. He was a tactical officer. Must have not been the best in the world, though, because he went into engineering. All right. And even then, so here's the interesting things. Again, I'm not saying that you can't have these skill sets. They're just different. Him being a tactical officer and then going into engineering, those are two different skill sets. Two very different skill sets. He could have them. He could have trained to get them. And in theory, she could have trained to get them too. But we don't know any of that. I mean, again, she is a master hacker. She is a MD. She is a coder, and she is the leading scientist in synthetic design, or however we want to say that. These are some very powerful and intriguing traits that are possible within this universe, because we know humans are way advanced compared to what they are in other universes or in the real world. But none of it's given to us. And just to say, well, she works on synthetics means she can code, that's not how it works. They're different skill sets. Now, if you want to say she has both of those skill sets, maybe she does. We don't have a lot of evidence for that. But maybe she does. Well, we have the evidence that she doesn't. We don't have any knowledge on how she got all of it. Let me say that. He has the skill because of plot. And she does make the best meatloaf. That is true. Is it really the leading scientist if she's the only one left? Technically, it is still that. Yes. Just means the bar is really, really low. The only other thing I kind of want to add to this, again, I don't like her acting here. I don't know what it is. I don't know what it's about. I don't know. I just don't like how she's coming off. But let's talk about Picard's PTSD for a second. I guess he never really got over it, which is interesting. One of the key character traits of a villain and a hero is that a hero is willing to change and a villain does not. Generally, they both have similar issues. They both come from backgrounds that can make them go one way or the other. But the character, the hero, evolves and the villain stays the same. Going back to Picard, in Nemesis, he shows that he has PTSD, that the Borg are a massive block for him, and then he doesn't address it, doesn't overcome it. I don't know if you could ever completely overcome it, but I do know that even today, when you have a lot of stressors or you have PTSD, you can work through it and get better. Get better is relative. You can and I don't even know that's the appropriate way of saying it. You can work through it. You may never be completely healed, but you can work on it, come to more grips with it. And it seems like nothing happened to him, even when we can do this in the real world today, you know? So we then have him going to the holodeck, and we have scenes of what's happened in the past of previous Trek. And it's an interesting way of doing it. What they really seem to be doing here is trying to give some background, trying to do flashbacks without doing flashbacks. It's an interesting way of doing it. I also love this setup here, the hologram. They bring up an old image of him, and then they superimpose his face onto him as Locutus and him going through it. This does bring up a couple of things when it comes to the way that it's being filmed, and makes me a little sad, I'll say. I don't think I would have ever noticed this if I wasn't going through what I'm going through, but the way some of these are cut, you can tell that they're trying to hide some of the let me think about that. They're trying to hide some of the ways that Sir Patrick Stewart has gotten feeble. And it's not me putting him down or anything. It's just when you get old, these things happen. There are points when he's shaking a little bit, or his hands are unsteady, or you can see he's having a harder time on set. And the transitions and the way it's shot tries to somewhat hide that. When he's holding objects, it's a bit easier to see. And I think there was some of it in this scene too. But I do like the superimposing and ignoring that. It was a great way of putting it together. He's also figuring out how to get onto the Borg cube, how they're going to take care of it. There isn't really a ton to that scene that I can add. If there's anything you'd like to add to it, let me know. I'll look in the back. We then have what I consider another absolutely useless scene, which is, of course, hold on, let me pull it up. We got the Mass Effect ship, because of course we do. And then we have Captain Manspreader playing soccer, I guess, is what he's playing. Because that's never been seen on any sci-fi at all. You know, guys, you've never seen the crew playing some kind of sport in the cargo bay. And people get really mad at me when I make allusions to Firefly. But again, you've never really seen any kind of sport. So there's one part to this that I want to add, and then I don't think there's a lot more to this scene. And this is going to be really the main focus. And if you're on Twitter, if you've watched me on Twitter, you know this is kind of where this was kind of a big deal for me. And I alluded to it at the beginning, but let me wait for it to get here real quick, and then we'll just walk on through it. And I swear to God, Star Trek has never saw an over-the-shoulder shot they didn't like. That's all they do. They love over-the-shoulder shots. That's it. If it's over-the-shoulder shot, that's bright lights and over-the-shoulder shots. That's Trek. If you can do that, if you can master bright lights and you can master shooting someone over the shoulder with a camera, not a gun, then you have mastered what it is to be a Star Trek cinematographer. Congratulations. Don't even have to go to film school. Just figure those things out. YouTube that. Practice it for a couple of days. Go apply. Instant cinematography. Job. YouTube. Star Trek. CBS. Go apply. Do it. I say that because I'm really annoyed, because as someone who edits and tries to get images of two characters together, you never can find it in Star Trek because it's all over the shoulder shot. No, I don't. Yeah, you better walk away. Yeah. All right. Let me bring it up. All of that's useless, though, because that's not what I want to talk about. What I do want to talk about is Star Trek's Kayle, or Agnes, is talking to Captain Manspreader and asking him, why do you like it out here? It's cold, and it's empty, and it's dangerous. A lot of people have tried to defend or tried to say that this isn't a big deal because it is said by a woman who is not the best, who is, I don't think she's a drug addict or anything, but it's said by someone who is a killer and is not in her best frame of mind. So, first off, the fact that one of the main heroes is not in her best mind is somewhat telling. Really, really telling. But we're not even going to look at that. Let's discuss the context and the actual forest. Because if you're saying, well, it's coming from someone who's a murderer, who, this is the second murderer in the show that we've seen. Oh, that's a good guy. Who is just detestable. Well, that's the trees. The forest is the fact that the entire content, everything up to this, what are we at now? 7 episodes? 6 or 7 episodes have all told us that it's dangerous. 7 of 9 has said that it's dangerous and that you've lost all hope. The neutral zone that doesn't exist anymore is full of pirates. And they live in a universe where if you were taken by the Borg and you were saved, you would be hunted, your eye ripped out of your socket without anesthesia, and just your organs just taken out so that it can be sold on the black market. So it's dangerous. It's very dangerous. And there's really nothing out there. Space is really empty. You see that too. There's a lot of emptiness to it. And if there's one thing about this entire series so far, with the exception of maybe the first and second episode, it is very cold. So she, regardless of who she is, she has described the Picard series. It is a dangerous universe. It is cold and it is empty. Now let's juxtapose that with TNG. Did they live in... Well, first off, I've said this and I still maintain this. Trek is basically horror stories in space. I got that from Red Letter Media, but it is very, very true. All you do is when you look at any of Nostalgia Trek or even Abramverse, it's a horror story that's set in space. So, looking at TNG specifically, was it dangerous? Sure. Look at Q-Who. Q-Who is, I think, the best example to compare this against. Q himself says that it's dangerous, that people are going to die, and if you don't like that, you need to stay at the safety of Earth. And even Earth itself isn't safe. So those are two parallels. Those two are correct. The difference between Shaban, the difference between Disco-era Trek and Nostalgia Trek is the next part of the sentence. Q talks about how wondrous it can be, how there's so much to go and see, and how you can have your senses just delighted, to boldly go where no one has gone before. That's what the original series, The Next Generation, TAS, DS9 even, which stayed on a stationary place, Voyager, and Enterprise was about. Boldly going where no one has gone before and finding the wonders. And sometimes, to quote Halo, you didn't like what you find. And we can see that in Deep Space Nine. In DS9, it had a great point, too, in the first episode, where Sisko is talking about how, he's talking to the prophets. He's talking to the wormhole aliens. And he says, we're not here to conquer you with military might or with ideas, but to ask questions. And to find out questions we've never even known we needed to ask. this is basically the complete fall of the Federation, the complete fall of even storytelling for Star Trek. The spirit of Trek and the way that it was created and the way that you wrote it, in my opinion, is gone. That said, it may or may not be a good thing. Basically, we're seeing the end of Starfleet, the end of the Federation. Shaban himself says that it's supposed to be valuable humans. And so that this encapsulates this entire series. Now, Trek Zone, who I'm going to have on, actually countered me on Twitter. You guys should come on to Twitter with me, twitter.com/Lore Reloaded. We have a lot of fun. And he said something that I've talked about a lot. So if you know my channel, you know that I always point out how the Starfleet may have always had a racist streak to it. They definitely had corrupt admirals. And when you break it down and you look at the story in depth, that's really what you get. However, that was never the intent or the spirit. And I guess that's where the disillusionment for me came. Because if you look at my channel honestly shows where this would be the end result. Even from a storytelling perspective, at the end of the day, this is where it ends. But I guess in the background, I always knew the spirit of the story was more meant to be uplifting. And for even me, it's kind of, I'm going to say culture shock, but I don't know that that's the appropriate term for it, where they just accept it and they're just honest about it. Because Star Trek was always supposed to be, even if they failed, it was always supposed to be about uplifting and showing where things can be. And basically, this is showing where things will go. And, you know, when I've talked about it, my pitch was to have a civil war, because I think that there would be a civil war. I don't think that this is wrong in that you would see the Federation and Starfleet start to decay. It's just how you wrote that story and where it went to. Wow, that got really long-winded really fast. Let's see how much you guys are putting me down. 87 people watching, 48 likes. Let's break it down. Why didn't the EMH stop Tilly 2.0 from yeeting the guy? I got into that beforehand. There's absolutely no reason that shouldn't have happened. I mean, honest to God. It's life outside the paradise that is Starfleet. Listening to Quark and Odo, it sounds like this is the norm outside of Federation space. We just never saw it. I disagree. Go for 697. Even if we accepted that that was the way, the spirit of the storytelling would be so much different. DS9 is the real world in a flying apartment in space. You see, here's the thing that you guys can counter. You guys can sit here and say, well, you're only watching it from Starfleet. You're only watching it from an apartment in space. That's fine. That doesn't address my point. You're missing the forest for the trees. Let's talk about the spirit. The spirit of the writing, where it was coming from. Shaban's spirit is way different from Abrams, is way different from Berman, and can't be further from Roddenberry. And so the way you write something is just as critical as the writing itself. I don't agree. Again, I think if the writing was objectionably good, I think you mean objectively good, then no one would care. Well, I think that you fundamentally misunderstand, because I think that writing generally is both subjective. I don't even know if I'd say generally. I think writing is subjective, because even while most people would subscribe to the hero's tell, that's not the only theory there is in writing. So it comes down to ad populum arguments at that point. I think that writing is subjective. Yeah, I don't agree with that. Highlight of the episode, I thought. I guess you're talking about when Agnes says that, which is fair enough. By the way, Trek Culture, rocking it out. They've had some pretty good episodes. You guys should check them out. First contact opening scene. I don't know what you mean, Yosef. You can walk me through that if you would like. Justin Jackson. I think that's a subject you don't know. Well, Justin, if you would like to challenge me and tell me why I don't know it, then please feel free to let me know. But until you get there, you can take a long walk, good sir. Hear that swoosh sound? Yeah, it's cheap. That swoosh, they say. Guys, if you don't agree with me, that's fine. In fact, the entire point of the channel is to have a conversation. I'm fine with you not agreeing with me. Can you at least expand on why you don't agree? Please? So that I can address it. If you're like, well, no, I don't agree. Well, I can't help you much. No, there's an objective way of writing. That's how we can teach it. Also, don't be a dick on a misspell. First off, I wasn't being a jerk on a misspell. I honestly didn't know how, but if you'd like me to be a jerk at Darkside Royalty Lore, I can definitely show you what jerk Lore Reloaded will do. So let me know if you want me to be a jerk, and I will definitively be a jerk for you, and you can see what the wrong side of that conversation is like. But beyond that, no, we can only really teach theory. We can really only teach what most people like. There are multiple writing theories. The most popular, to my knowledge, is the hero's journey. But there are a lot of ways to write different things. Writing is an art, which is, at the end of the day, very subjective. Now, if you're going to tell me grammatically there are things we can do, sure, that is objective. There are grammatically ways you can write things. But subjectively, Alex Personal said, you call me naive for saying Narek was using standard human techniques to manipulate her rather than falling in love with her. Hasn't turned out that way. I'm really glad he didn't help her. I think he still loved her. I don't know that I don't remember. I honestly don't remember calling you naive, Alex. It sounds like something I might do, but I don't remember that. I think he did fall in love with her. I think that's quite clearly shown. We'll get into that in a second. I found people who criticize the critics really can't defend the criticism, says DevMag52. Not sure if that's at me or not, but if there's a criticism you think, you can do it. You amuse me and it's cute. Well, Darkside Royalty Lore, I really am trying to amuse you. That's what I want to do. So I'm glad that I am here for your amusement. In fact, that's what entertaining is. It's dancing for people. And if there's anyone I want to dance for, Darkside Royal, it's you. All right, so Picard is way better than Star Trek Discovery. I'd agree with that. All right, let's do it. Let's get into it, shan't we? As you said, Picard's post-traumatic stress syndrome was not addressed after TNG series. I said First Contact, but you are now elsewhere, so it's okay. Yeah, no, I was talking about after First Contact. It was addressed. So what I meant was, and that's what I was referring to as well, First Contact, is when we really see the PTSD come out. And I'm sorry if I didn't say that. But you would think he would have had it addressed after that. It's 20, 30 years since then? We take care of it today. Not that PTSD can ever be truly taken care of or fixed like medicine, you know. Darkside Royalty does the same dance. We should dance together then, friend. We should dance together. Lewdly. All right. Oh, also one thing real quick. Let's see. Let's get into it. Where is it? Wait for it. I am so angry that they are objectifying Captain Manspreader. He is not wearing a shirt. Can you believe that? You can see his nip. Hashtag Manspreader Lives Matter too. Can you even imagine just such misandry, internal misandry, that they would show someone half naked? Sorry. Gotta get that out of the way. It's going to be clipped and used against me as if I actually believe it. All right. She's attractive as hell, by the way. I really find her an attractive human being. All right. This person right here, Agnes is fine. I don't trust blondes, but Agnes is fine. Agnes is attractive as well, but I really find her attractive too. Why am I trying to justify? I'm never even going to meet either actress. I don't even know why I'm sitting here trying to justify it. Anyway, let's get on to the plot point itself. So the discussion here is, I don't even know her name. That's horrible. So sister, incest sister, I guess is what we'll call her. Sister who apparently wants to have sex with her own brother, is talking about the goal of finding wherever they're trying to find. So one of the questions has been, why haven't they just killed Soji? But before we get into that, let's look at Morgan Gray. I know you guys hate this, but hey, this is how I keep the lights on. Morgan Gray says, I feel like the writers are being forced to push further away from Roddenberry's dream of what he saw for Star Trek, but that's just me. It is quite possible. That's what they're doing. I do think that there is some executive pushing down. But, you know, there's really no way to know without them being 100% truthful. I don't think we'll ever know on the record until after everyone's been paid. Is there an agenda or a bias? Maybe, but I generally don't think execs press down this hard. I think this is more just people writing what they think people want to watch. I think they think this is what our culture wants. And, you know, based on numbers that I'm seeing, they may be right, at least for CBS. We can get into that later, though. Now, focusing on this. By the way, if you guys are giving donations or whatever, that money can go to fund certain projects. Like you can fund me doing a makeup tutorial, or if you want me to fund a breakdown of a specific ship that hasn't been done yet, go to lorereloaded.com, take a look there. Or if there's anything you like, let me know. Or you can also let me know what's already being funded, and we'll have that. We never had such bumbling fool writers before Star Trek Discovery. I disagree, Nilyu. Thank you for the support. After I go through this scene, remind me of that, or I'll try to remember that, and we'll discuss that. Okay. So, you have evil incest sister here, and she is talking about the synth, and it even addresses why they're keeping her alive, because that was a big question. Why keep her alive? You know where she is. You tried to kill the other one. Well, you tried to take her in. When that didn't work, you moved to kill her. So why are you trying to keep her alive? Well, this makes sense now. They're trying to get some information that's in her. Apparently, and we don't know completely sure, but she has a system that she knows that they have to get to. Some kind with... Really, we don't know why she has to get there, but we know that she has to... There is a system that holds some key, and that's in her mind, and they're trying to pull it out. Now, the back and forth in this specific instance is done really, really well. And this was probably the only interaction when it comes to evil, bad guy fall in love, and incest sister that I enjoyed. I have not liked the B plot on the Borg cube at all. So this is kind of getting into something that I've somewhat enjoyed. Basically, he has a box, which apparently is some kind of Vulcan toy or something like that, that people have a really hard time getting through. It's like a Rubik's Cube. And he's playing with it while they're talking. And she's telling him, you know, you're falling in love with this chick. I'm about to take over. You're not getting us anywhere. This doesn't make any sense. He then points out the dreams that she's having. We've already talked about that, but to briefly go back over it, she's dreaming because she knows deep down she's actually not human, but she thinks she's human. She's trying to reconcile it. So she's starting to dream to try to figure out how all of this is working. And he's telling her, when he's talking through it, he says, you know, last time we tried to take them by force, she activated and basically killed most everybody. And so we don't need to go that route again because I like being alive. I choose life. And so instead of doing that, we can bypass her defenses if we can get her to be honest about dreaming. And so that is interesting. That is very Romulan. That's very deceptive. He obviously still loves the chick. I mean, that trope is just there. It just is. Unlike with 7 of 9 and the bad guy, which has very little evidence, in my opinion, this is quite clear. But he still... I thought he was going to betray the Romulans at the end. I did think that he was going to let his love fall over and it was going to do that. Luckily, that didn't happen. I'm glad when they subvert my expectations in that way. But he basically talks to her and says, you know, we just need patience. You need to relax. And then he beats the game or the little puzzle and something pops out. And I like that for a couple of reasons. First off, it is good foreshadowing because he's going to use that again to try to kill Saji. So that's really done well. We've introduced something that we're going to bring up later. That's great storytelling, great way of filming. It also is used as a way of showing that the other chick needs to just relax and needs to let him do what he's doing because he's still actually doing his mission. And she needs to just stay on the down low because if they press this too hard, they're not going to get it. So it was used wonderfully as a tool to show patience, and that's brought up again, really pretty cool. I like that, and it has a tie back to how Romulans generally kill people, and so we'll get into that in a little bit. But I really like that scene. I thought it was done incredibly well. It's the only scene on the cube that I actually like. Again, most of them, they don't do a lot for me at all. All right. And so, now, on their way to... Let me see. They're on their way to the artifact, and they have an intriguing discussion, a good back and forth, about, hey, we're on the way to the Borg cube. It's controlled by the Romulans. How exactly are we going to get in there? This creates a problem. They also talk about the Reclamation Project, which is independently done, which can have Starfleet and Federation dignitaries. And I like that because I think that's a good storytelling device and a good way of getting around a really obvious question, which is, why the hell would Starfleet or any other empire be okay with the Romulan Free Nations, I guess, or Free States, the RFE at this point, getting Borg technology, which is super advanced? Why would they be okay with that? However, if the Romulans were to say, you know, what we're going to do is we're going to provide protection for the cube, and we're going to let an independent body that you guys can come and check out exist on it. And really, we just want to help people. I can see Starfleet buying that because Starfleet has bought a lot of other stupid things. I mean, it is obviously idiocy. It is obviously not what you don't trust the Romulans. But Starfleet, not wanting to get into a war or because they still had some naivete to them, would say, that sounds great. That sounds good. Sounds like a good thing. That is absolutely what Starfleet would do. Starfleet would 100% be down for that. At least TNG era Starfleet. You could argue DS9 era Starfleet maybe taking a little bit of umbrage, but if they're becoming more insular, they're becoming more concerned about themselves, they might be like, you know what, that's fine. You don't mess with us. We won't mess with you. We don't want anything done. Especially with Commodore O, whatever, Vulcan bad guy, probably from the, what is it? The alternate universe. Oh, what the hell is it? Mirror universe. They probably would have accepted that. So that is actually believable. I think it's feasible. I could see that. Another really good part of this episode is where Rafi, Star Trek's Zoe, contacts one of her people in Starfleet, and she tries to get access to the Borg cube. Because, again, send a Federation dignitary. Of course, the Starfleet officer says, wow, that's the one thing I can't do. I can't do that at all. And then, all of a sudden, she says, Rafi says, well, that's a shame because we're about to show up at the Borg cube. And of course, that would be considered an act of war to the Romulans, who wouldn't care that they're there by themselves. Everything about this is very Trek writing. I think this is actually done really well. I think this is a great scene. In the end, we'll talk about the end. That's debatable. But this part is done really well. It's a great way of getting them onto the cube. And I do think, again, it's something that we could probably see in Trek before. The Romulans would start a war over something. Well, they may not start a war, but they would definitely rattle cages and at least threaten it with ships showing up randomly, being citizens of the Federation, especially a former admiral. I everything about this makes sense to me. The one piece we'll get into, and I want to see your guys' opinion on this because I know a lot of people got upset about it, is the fact that she is basically during this entire time drunk. And at the end, they're all clapping for her, but she can barely hold herself up. She's just gone. You know, there's a couple of things to this. First off, she betrayed everything that she was. She didn't want to be a part of this. And now she's contacting Starfleet that abandoned her for all intents and purposes. And she's obviously an alcoholic and she's drunk at the time. So this being draining for her is understandable. And I think that that's a part of the story. We've already accepted. Well, no, this is where it comes from. People get upset because she's an alcoholic and she's on the bridge and drinking. This is Disco Track universe. This is Shaban writing, right? It's not going to be what it was. In fact, and I said this on Twitter. I said this on Twitter. Let me forward it a little bit. I said this on Twitter. Star Trek's Zoe, or Rafi, is exactly what would happen to every Starfleet Federation officer if we're talking about the real world. If this is humans, as we see humans today, and we continue to evolve the way we are right now, this is the result. Because what happens to you in Starfleet, the people you lose, the things you see, would turn you into a drunk, would turn you into an addict. So she is a very, very realistic human, and the very result of what Starfleet would do. So it comes down to, if you can ultimately just let go that you're not in the era of Roddenberry or Myers or Berman. So I'd be interested to see what you guys say. We're going to give it a second. 113 people watching, only 55 likes. Are you guys scared? I mean, if you're scared, I get it. I understand. That like button, pretty intense. It's a pretty intense like button. Let me address Neil Yu for a second. We've never had such bumbling fool writers before Star Trek Discovery. We absolutely have. We had TNG season 1 and 2 was pretty bad, especially with some very questionable and racist episodes. You have had women impregnated against their will and then accept that without any kind of repercussions. You have had men impregnated against their will and then mocked by the crew, especially when they were, for all intents and purposes, sexually assaulted. Cisco had sex with someone without their consent and then joked about it. Wow, when it comes to bumbling, Star Trek writers really don't understand how to deal with sex. I just realized that. And it's not just that. There are other episodes too. So, I mean, when it comes to bumbling fool writers, we've had those before Star Trek Discovery, just in different ways. Trek culture, me and the girlfriend just call her Cruel Intentions. I can see that. But yeah, what are your guys's? This is Rafi, not every Starfleet officer. That's fine, but every Starfleet officer would be Rafi. In other Trek, it is shown that they drink coffee on the bridge or in ops. Sure, she's not on a Starfleet ship, so her having alcohol on the bridge, I mean, it's an independent ship. If Captain Manspreader, man, I don't even know his real name, or his character name. If Captain Manspreader wants to do that, then they can. You know? They do mention 2 strips of Latinum. We'll get into that in a second. It's a hilarious plot point that the hot chick wants to do you. Okay. Some good points, Lore. Gold press Latinum. Every man is validated. Okay. Only by being wanted. That is true. That's bad writing too, I think. The like button is a big commitment. I mean, what are your guys' thoughts? Do you have anything you want to add to that or not really? I can continue on. I always wondered why they didn't have tentacle monsters. Now we do know why. We do. You could argue that this is more of a practical view. If the Romulans want to paint a big giant target on their back for the Borg to come and stop this reclamation, it's not the Federation's problem. That's true. Looking at the Borg cube itself, it is possible that because the Borg would respond to that if they realized the cube was being gutted, they'd have a huge issue with that. But I could see that. I think that's very current era. This is very Picard Starfleet. So maybe they just didn't want to have a fight with the Borg. I could see them not doing that too. The Romulan Star Empire was my favorite. They really should not have been brought into the forefront like that. They were cool when they were a mystery. It is true that if you remove mystery, it kind of removes something from it. I don't know. Half the season is done, and I can't remember half the characters' names either. That is something. That is a bad thing. The show is written by people who don't like or understand Trek. I don't believe that. I think the writers, I don't think they dislike Trek. I think they probably do know Trek too. I don't know that I believe that. I don't know. I was late. Did you talk about that transporter in the Queen's chamber yet? No. We're going through it scene by scene, Trek Culture. We've talked about everything you've seen, good sir. We'll discuss that at the end. Though I'd be interested, since you're bringing that up, what's specific to that? If you're not staying or you can't, definitely email it to me and I'll bring it up so you can look it on the back way. Insane White kidnapped all the monsters. Okay. All right. The Borg are not dead. In fact, we have definitive proof that they are not. So let's continue on this train of ill repute, shall we say? Let us continue talking about that of which shouldn't be. They do talk about gold press latinum. Apparently that is how you have these conversations now. That is how you not have these conversations. How economies move, I guess, is through gold press latinum, which would make sense at least. They're referring it back. We then have the conversation. She's talking about the loss and everything she's gone through, which would be horrific. I can only imagine. It would be pretty bad. Again, it goes back to what's appropriate for old Trek versus new Trek. Comes down to your preferences. We then have Soji calling her mom. Interesting piece here. So one of the things they talk about when it comes to when she's talking to Captain, I'm evil, but I still love you. He points out that anything that seems weird is logged, which is true. The Romulans would definitively do that. And he points out, he says, every time you talk to your mom, it's for 70 seconds on the dot. And she says, you're wrong about that. And they bring up and talk about how she almost always falls asleep when she's talking to her mom. And then she tries to call her mom, tries to have a conversation. She tries to fight going to sleep and, of course, conks out. At that point, she begins questioning everything that ever happened. Let me see if I can bring that up, because that's a little bit later. Where is it? We're going to skip for just a second. Here it is. She begins looking at all of her stuff and I guess dating it somehow. Not carbon dating it, but finding out how old it is. Apparently all of it's under 3 years. All the pictures, everything she ever wrote, all of it is under, a much less time than what she remembers it as. So she's finding out that she isn't an actual human or something isn't making sense. And it's pointed out to her, maybe this is all being implanted inside of you. It's being very well played by the guy who wants to have her babies. Because I guess that's the only way that would work, right? As if he had her babies. Once they get there, Captain Raffi was able to convince the person, the Starfleet officer, to give him a 1-day clearance. Because if they didn't, it could mean war, and Starfleet doesn't want any part of that. Of course, Commander O would be made aware of that, I'm absolutely sure. The Romulans say, hey, you can't actually board or dock, but you can beam onto a specified location and only Picard. Fair enough. Now, The cinematography here and the way it's filmed and the way it's brought together is done exceptionally well. The writing for him walking around and being scared and, having all of these flashes is tropish. It's something we've seen before. I'm of a mixed bag here. I actually like the scene, and the flashbacks are fine. They're good. Just because something's been done before doesn't make it bad. I think it's done fairly well. It just doesn't make any sense. The Romulans are really going to let him beam into the middle of nowhere so that he can walk around and have this existential crisis, only to be saved by some Freeborg FBs, some X-Borg, and so Hugh can talk to him so that they can have that scene. I mean, I get why they did it. It makes no sense in the story. It makes no sense why the Romulans would do that. It makes no sense at all. I mean, I can say that over and over again. The visuals are excellent, though. Look at those visuals, man. That is beautiful. I would have loved to seen this type of cinematography and these type of effects during the Next Generation. How wonderful would that have been to see? It is exceptionally well done. I really like it. There is a point here that I do want to bring up that I think is unfortunate. So where is it? Hold on, wait for it. Wait for it. There was also a scene with a Borg waking up. I don't know if that was supposed to be him or not. It didn't look like him. Let me see if I can catch it. And I'm going to stop for a second, see if you guys can help me with this. Hold on. Let me see. Let's go 10 seconds in the future. 10 more seconds in the future. There it is. Is that supposed to be him? Let me share it. Who's that supposed to be? Who's that mean to me? There's a couple of things here. So is this person, is that supposed to be Jean-Luc Picard, or is this a Borg actually waking up who's in an alcove? What exactly, or is this the guy who's saving him? I'm going to stop right here to see if you guys can help me out with that. There was a voice in Picard's head of Hugh saying something about we should never have been disconnected. I didn't hear that. That's interesting. I believe you, Sirstus. That's interesting, but I never heard that. That's intriguing. I don't know. Trek Culture, did you say something I missed? Maybe you responded, I didn't look. Or maybe you're just randomly responding to people. I think it was his Borg connected side waking up. I don't know. I don't know. I just assumed that was a rando Borg waking up due to Picard's panic touching on the collective. But that's a problem, right? So this is another Chekhov's gun then. So this is a random Borg waking up. You can see how that's going to be a problem, right? And so maybe this is going to come up in the next episode or maybe at the end. But just for this random Borg to wake up because of Locutus's presence, I don't know. I don't know why. I hope they do something with it. It'll be intriguing if they do. But if it's just a random Borg just to have it, I don't know. Don't even know. All right, so here's the one part. I love how they also brought in scenes from TNG. I thought that was excellently done. They do a lot of it from TNG, from Nemesis. So here's a piece. CBS marketing is at UPN levels when it comes to misdirection. And I don't say that as a good thing. I don't know if, for those of you who watched Star Trek Voyager when it was on UPN, or UPN, as it said in the Greek, they always, 100% would market the episode as something it was not. They would always make it look more interesting or worse than it ever was. That's one of the reasons that Voyager really struggled, is because UPN marketing lied. They lied like rugs, good friends. Like rugs. Now, in the CBS marketing, it made it look like he was being captured either by Borg or by Romulans, and they made it seem like they were going to either use him for parts or make him be a part of the Borg again. That's really bad marketing. Stop. Sorry, that just annoyed me. None of us are that old. I was that old, Magic the Frontier. I'm in my 30s. So you can go to hell, is what I'm trying to say. Ultimately, all it was is disconnected Borg trying to help him, as you can see right here. Fantastic. Thanks for lying. Please stop being UPN when it comes to your marketing. However, there is one piece here that I really did enjoy, that I really did like. Well, there's a couple of things here. First off, hold on. Wait for it. And I didn't notice this till just now. All those alcoves have Borg in them, though they're copy and paste. That's the exact same guy. That is the exact same guy. Huh. And someone said this is Hugh's chamber. That I can buy, but it's interesting. It's an interesting look into Hugh, that he would be so comfortable that he would be next to Borg, still in alcove, still somewhat connected, and feel safe. It's interesting. Not really. I don't know. I'm going to have to think about that one. I actually try to think and process everything before I do these. So if I see something new, that takes me some time. Let me say this, though. The meeting between Hugh and Picard, I think, is excellent. I really liked it. I think it was I think it was a great way to introduce them, to have them hug, to have them be friends. It was, and it could be just from TNG. There could be member berries here. I could be clouded, but this was probably the best scene of the entire episode. I think there was a camaraderie there. You could see an equal respect. You could really, it really brings it home that they're basically like really old friends, if not brothers in a way, you know? And so I thought this was done just in an excellent form. There's not too much to add. It is more just, hey, you're back. Let's have a conversation of where we caught up. There's not a ton to add to it. Don't know about the hug. I disagree. I thought the hug was really excellent. It really felt natural for me. It is intriguing to watch him. It's intriguing to watch Jean-Luc walk through the Borg, the Borg collective, the Borg cube, and be as frightened and as off as he is. The reason why this seems a little odd to me is that he did fight the Borg in Star Trek Nemesis when he was surrounded by Borg technology, similar to what he saw here. I'm trying to think if he was on a Borg cube after that. I don't know that he was, so maybe that would change it. He did face a Borg cube. He may not have been on one. Another piece to it, I guess. And part of this is the actor, but it really transfers to Jean-Luc himself. And I said this before. I don't mean this as a slight. It is just something that's a part of it. I think that Jean-Luc's age is really showing. I think that the fact that he's frail is apparent. Now, luckily in this scene, not in every scene, but luckily in this scene, on the Borg cube, it really can be attributed to Picard and not to Patrick Stewart. In fact, and it may be acted, but in fact, if I hadn't noticed it on other scenes where he's not on the cube, I would say that his frailness and the way he's acting is actually Patrick Stewart acting like Picard, showing that he's frail. Because it's so seamless in this instance. But you really do see that he's had his end of his life. I honestly, I think I have trouble talking about this because I feel bad about pointing it out, but it does feel like it's a part of the art. It's a part of the work. I'm not putting down Patrick Stewart or even saying that it was a bad idea to have him on there, have him at this point, have it this late in the game, but it is now showing, and it is again, it has become a part of the art, so it's worth noting, I'd be interested on your thoughts on that. Picard was never on a Borg cube. Picard was on a Borg cube once. In fact, he was turned into Locutus of Borg, and he used a Borg cube to attempt to kill people. But you're probably talking about after. He was never on a Borg cube after. Then yeah. So taking a look at what you guys are saying on that, in Nemesis, Picard fought the Borg. Now he doesn't know if he can. He's at the point where it could be his end if the Borg got to him. That's fair, I think. It's possible that Picard's neurological condition is playing a role in his frailty and PTSD. I can accept that. I can accept that. I think that is a good way, and I think that adds to it. That makes sense. I didn't think about that, but I think that's a good point. But that's not why it's there. So in universe, I'm going to accept that. That's my new accepted lore, because I think it makes sense. So thank you for bringing that out. That's not the real reason, but I don't worry about real reasons. This channel's focused on in-universe. So who said that, by the way? I don't know who said that, but you know what? You rock. You rock. When did Picard fight the Borg in Nemesis? Not Nemesis, First Contact. I said the wrong movie. Oh, yeah, I forgot. If you get the wrong movie or you get confused, you're instantly not a Trek fan and you don't know what you're talking about. I forgot that rule. Gopher697 didn't say that. That's actually a meme that's going around because people get stuff wrong. It was First Contact. My bad. I would agree. It is a now or never with Stewart. I would agree with that. Another piece that I liked when it came to this was... Where is it? Wait for it. He shows the Borg being healed, that they're trying to take care of the scars, that the Romulans are taking care of them. This is something Picard needed because he at first, when we first saw during the conversation with Agnes and Legolas, we saw that he couldn't accept that the Borg were anything but evil, right? Deep down, he didn't think that, but it was the front emotion. It was the pain. It was the anger. And so now he sees that Borg can be saved. And maybe he always knew that, but he needed to see it to accept it. And I liked this part. I think this was really a great thing. I'll be honest with you. It's interesting, the dialogue, because Hugh talks about how, and this is an interesting piece. I don't know if you guys picked this up or not, but he talks about how they traded a Borg queen for a Romulan one. The way that dialogue can be taken, it can be taken one of two ways. Like a Romulan queen. Are we going to see Sela come back? Romulan queen. But beyond that, they aren't free. They are still under the purview of the Romulans. But they're no longer Borg, and they're being fixed up. And it's something that Picard it helps Picard. It gives him closure to a degree, I think, looking at the acting, the way he's responding to it. I thought that was well done. I thought that was excellent. Again, I wonder if we're going to see Sela, because again, they say they changed a Borg queen for a Romulan one. Depending on how you want to take that, that could be Sela coming out. The only thing, it kind of saddens me that we're now in Shaban writing, though. And this is going to go with me saying this part is very Star Trek. The only thing I hate is I would have loved if the Federation or Starfleet could have been doing this to give him that hope. But that's not the way that we're going to, go with this, obviously. There was another piece I wanted to talk about. What did I want to bring it up? Also, it brings back the overall theme for Picard, at least. Because Hugh was talking about, well, we're saving these people, but they're really going to be used by the Romulans. And we can't save them to the extent that I want to. And the Picard says, you're still doing good. It's not perfect, but you're still doing good. And that's what matters. And it's him realizing his mistake. The hero changing. Because remember, when he first did this, he stopped helping altogether because he couldn't have it his way. So he gave up the good because he couldn't have the perfect. And here he's saying, well, it's not perfect, but it's good. And it's exactly what's needed. So we see the fundamental shift and change in Picard, which I really liked. I thought that was very well done. It was a good shift for him. Beyond that, don't really have much more to add. It was an interesting, intriguing scene, if you will. They then go looking for we have more Rafi stuff. They then go looking for Soji, who's taken into a place for them to do a meditation that only Romulans are supposed to do. Interestingly, when he walks in, one other piece I liked. So I don't need to go back to it. So I forget exactly what he said, but Picard was like, well, where's Soji? And he said, she's around. She's been working. Based your B here, I assume she's in a lot of trouble. She's also been talking to I don't think he said Tal Shiar agent, but basically he said, she's also been talking to a Tal Shiar agent who's very interested in her, but is trying to pretend like he's not interested in her. I love that Hugh's not stupid and Hughes knows what's going on his own Borg cube. I love that. I think that is pretty cool. And I think it really does justice for the character. So they go on their efforts to find Soji. Soji is brought in here by, Loverboy, who is ultimately going to betray her. Thankfully, I would have hated if he didn't do that. And so they go through the dream sequence, and she finds out the information that he's trying to do, and he's able to bypass it without her going insane and killing him. Let me see if I can pull that up. It's an in-depth thing, but it basically comes down to that's what they see. Hold on. Let me see. Oh, she finds out that she was made. I like this too. Hold on. Wait for it. All the things she said. All right, here we go. She's walking across the lines because that makes a lot of sense. We see the flowers. Her father yells at her. We move it 10 seconds forward. She sees herself being constructed, made of wood. I think that's really cool. I like the visuals on that and how they put that together. How she realizes that she's a synth. And then once she sees that she was put together, she looks up into the sky. Hold on. And she sees the two stars here. Interestingly enough, these two stars were near the Borg cube. I don't know if this was a change that they did, but if you go back to the first episode, you saw the necklace she wore that had 2 stars or 2 circles and that she's still wearing. And then it showed them, and it interposed the image of the 2 different stars that was next to the Borg cube. I don't know if that was on purpose, if that was the plan all along, or if they changed it midstream and said, no, these are 2 planets that we're going to go to that are far away from where they are. I'm honestly not sure. I also, this kind of gives me, what was it was a Will Smith movie. It involved robots. They were 3 rules strong. The end of that movie, iRobot. The end of iRobot. This gives me iRobot vibes. I wonder if they're going to go here and find like an android race or something. I don't know. She should have seen herself as a cake. I get the reference. I definitively get the reference. Very well done. I'm impressed. All right. Now, of course, he says, I love her. And then he looks like he's in like an S ton of pain here. I also love how they called her round ears. There are 2 things here. First off, they call them round ears, which are a slur because the guy didn't want to let her in. And then if you look at him here when he's about to kill her, you see how much pain he is. He's obviously loves her. They're doing that trope. That just don't even tell me they're not doing that trope. I do want to wait for a second though. Hold on. There it is. So look at this guy. All right. So you have Captain I love you, but I'm going to kill you, who's going to use the box, which again, this was wonderfully done. They introduced the box at the beginning. They show how it's a toy. They show how it takes patience and it's important and it's related to Soji. And then he uses it to kill her with radiation. And we're going to get into that in a second. That's wonderfully well written. And this is the guard or the sub-commander or whatever. And so he didn't want to let them in. He lets them in after he's threatened by Captain Loverboy. Captain Loverboy, after a while, rushes out, closes the door, locks it, and kills her. And dude just stands there watching. He's confused, but he isn't stopping anything. He's like, all right, just another day on a Borg cube where we're killing people who aren't Romulans. But I ain't going to ask any questions because I work for the Romulans. I understand how this entire thing works. I just love how he just stands there and he's like, wow, this is really confusing, but it is another day at the office. And I'm not going to question it. I'm not going to try anything. I'm not going to say anything. Obviously she did something to warrant to be killed. Not my problem. What really is my problem is making sure that this stays closed so it doesn't get out. Now, one thing I do want to add to that I found interesting was a good tie-in is if you go and you look. There we go. Come on. Do it. Give it to me. Give it to me, baby. Uh-huh. There it is. Hold on. There we go. That's it. He's killing her with a form of radiation. Now, there's 2 interesting things to this. First off, it may be a tie back to Nemesis. I think that was in Nemesis, where the Senate is killed with radiation. But the other thing is if you look at that tie-in, I wonder if radiation is just the assassination tool of the Romulans. That really opens up some intriguing questions because this is the second time we've seen them use radiation to kill somebody. In important scales. Yeah, Northerners, the Romulan Northerners, can't trust them. That would be intriguing to me to deep dive into because it seems like it's just the modus operandi. And I wonder if it's the modus operandi of high-level Romulans. Maybe when someone who is a higher level or deep in the Tal Shiar, they kill someone, they do it with radiation. It's like a calling card, almost. I wonder. I agree that it's a tieback, but I think there's more to it. Well, thank you. My cat likes to think it's cute, too. Oh, that's my shoulder. Yeah, that's my shoulder. Please don't wholly stand on my shoulder by yourself. Captain Loverboy, Captain Manspreader, Incest Sister, Tilly 2.0, Zoe 2.0. I like these names. Keep them up. Tilly 2.0 isn't mine. I actually call her Star Trek's Zoe. Star Trek Zoe and Star Trek's Kayle. So, it's an interesting way to kill a person, and it really makes me think that high level dignitaries, high level personnel, and high level Tal Shiar all generally just kill people based on radiation, which is an intriguing way of doing it. I think. I think it adds something to it. I don't hate it, as they say in the French. It wasn't Tholiron radiation, though. If that was Tholiron radiation, oh, they'd all be screwed. It was not that type. All right. So then Picard ultimately so what she does is once there's radiation in there, she begins just jackhammering into the floor. Apparently she can go through solid steel. She's an android, I guess, so that somewhat makes sense. She falls down. Radiation doesn't follow her, by the way. Radiation that will kill you instantly apparently does not follow her down into the space she's going in. What I also love too, there's a couple of pieces to this. First off, she drops down, and initially everyone's surprised by this, but if you watch the back and forth between her and Picard, there are some people walking in the background like nothing's going on. Like a woman will go through complete Durasteel or whatever the hell that is, Borg metal, will go through it like it's nothing, claw it up, drop down, and begin having this conversation while Romulan guards, like an S-ton of Romulan guards, are behind them. And people are walking by like, oh, wow, I guess it's that day of the month. I guess we have someone else who's trying to escape who apparently has the ability to... Whoa, what'd you do? Who apparently has the ability to go through floors and is being tracked by Romulan soldiers. I guess it's just a day that ends in Y, I suppose. They then have the trope where Picard's like, do you trust me? And she's like, I do trust you, Picard. I do. I trust you with all my heart. And so we then begin the chase scene. The chase scene where Hugh is helping out Picard and Sochi. And then they go... Soji, whatever her name is. And then... let's talk about the Queen Room. Trek Culture, if you're still here, we have finally gotten to the Queen's Room. A couple of things added here that I like from a lore perspective. Picard instantly recognizes it as the Queen's Room. So does Hugh. And Hugh, he talks about it. He's like, this is the Queen's Room, and we, you recognize it, even though you've never been here. I love that. I think that's really well done. And it adds to the lore, and it really talks about the Borg, how the Borg always stick with you. And then when they input you into it, they give you all of this stuff that you may or may never need, right? Trek Culture, you wanted to ask, I can say it again. What are you doing? Why are we doing this? I know this is going down, but what does this serve? You gonna make it? And so we get into the Queen's Room, which I think is interesting. Then you have a gateway that allows you to go almost anywhere, I guess, within 40 light years or something crazy like that, right? And so that's how they're going to escape, because they're being tracked by the Borg. It's interesting that he knows this and he didn't tell them about it, which I think is kind of telling. Again, it's him not being an idiot. I'm trying to bring it around. Wow, this is making it complicated. Can you please keep doing this? Yeah, let's keep doing this exactly. So he's working on getting this gateway that wasn't there when Picard did. Why? He's working on getting this gateway. Legolas sees that they're in trouble. All of a sudden disappears. And then comes down and just, what the fuck, McPones 3 guards to save him, right? He shows up on the actual Borg cube. He was told not to. Picard points out, I told you not to. He said, yeah, I didn't listen. And then he kills him. And Picard says, thank you. And so then we get to the point where they have to escape. They're going to escape through this gateway. Intriguingly, they were talking about some alien species that this gateway would help them go through. I haven't looked it up. I wonder if that alien species was talked about in Trek before. Trek Culture says, yeah, how did he get there? I assume that he transported. That is an interesting place. When it comes to Legolas, how did Legolas get there? It's one of those things where you're just going to have to accept that he somehow transported on, even though there would probably be some way of stopping it. It also asks the question, if he transported there, why didn't they just transport all 4 of them off? Instead of him going there, transport all 4 of them off, because they think that the ship is going to get away because Picard says, hey, you need to meet me at X spot. And they're like, okay. Now, we do see that they're caught by a tractor beam, but it's Picard's assumption that they're going to escape, and I assume that they are. So why not just beam them aboard? Why go through all of this rigmarole? It doesn't make any sense. Now, you could argue maybe you can't beam into or out of the Queen's room, the Queen's chamber. Okay. First off, we saw that you couldn't Voyager, but let's assume for some reason you can't here. They could then just leave the Queen's room and beam off, right? So, I mean, there's that. I don't know why Hugh did not go with them. I expected that because Hugh has to leave too. There's no reason for Hugh to stay. He's going to be tortured and he's going to be killed. Now, maybe he's staying to be with the Free Borg, to stay with his people. He's probably going to try to hide behind the fact that he's a Federation citizen. I don't think that's going to do much for him. But maybe that's where it is. I don't know. That's probably where they'll try to go through it. The Sicarans are from Voyager episode, had the projection tech. Okay. They are the species that loves pleasure. Interesting. But wouldn't give the tech. Okay. I figured they were from something. I just couldn't remember it. So they go through and they escape. Hugh stays and he goes with him to hide the Queen, to hide the Queen's chamber. If you want, I didn't know that was rolling. I hope I don't get shut down by CBS. I'm going to say this. This is the perfect way to end this episode. I thought it was excellently done. So you have Hugh there with the disruptor, and you have Legolas, and the doors close, and the last thing you see him ask is he says, please choose not to die or choose life, however he says that, which is a throwback to when they first met him. Also, I like how Picard was saying that, I'm not leaving you this time. And he said that meant a lot because, again, it's a tie back. It was a really good character building moment. And then, this was and then he goes out, they close the door and you hear him say that. Spectacularly done. Just very well done. I really like the ending to this episode. I thought it was brilliant. Now, here's the thing. Can you not see it now? Let's turn that off. Let's do that first. Then hit this button. Hit this button. There it is. Da-da-da. I didn't know you guys couldn't see it. All right. I just think it's really well done. Plus, the framing here is just excellent. All right. Here's something that probably will never be addressed when you think about it. The Federation in and of itself. See something real quick. The Federation Sorry. Okay. The Federation gives them a piece of paper that says, hey, Admiral Picard is our dignitary for 24 hours. He wants to see this person. And then the Admiral, the good Admiral, in correspondence with the head of the civilian operation on the Borg cube, help what I'm sure will be called a Romulan, a terrorist to the Romulan people, or a criminal that the Romulans want, help them escape. And then their crew escapes. So they basically cause all kinds of havoc. They kill at least 3 Romulan soldiers. I'm sure there's going to be more Romulan soldiers that they kill. And or Romulan officers. And then they escape. You're worried about war. This is how wars start. The Admiral comes, they kill Romulan officers, they escape with a fugitive. You don't think the Romulans aren't going to be like, aren't going to sit down at a table with the head of Starfleet and be like, I think we have a problem. I think I'm a little peeved, because I really can see that conversation. I can see a Romulan sitting down saying, I'm a little angry. I'm going to try to not raise my voice. But over 3 Romulan officers are dead. A fugitive is on the run with your Admiral. And you're the one that approved for him to be there. We went to war with the Dominion for less. I think, my dearest of friends, this is going to raise some questions. Cause a little friction, if you will. And a lot of people are saying this. So they're saying, well, the Free Borg are going to CNC. He's going to blow a gasket. Yeah. So they say, well, the Free Borg are going to rebel. Hugh knows the Borg cube better. He'll just use the Borg cube against it. Imagine that conversation. All right. So that now the Romulan dignitary sits down and he's like, all right, head of Starfleet, let's talk about what happened. You sent an admiral who killed 3 of our soldiers, if not more, and then caused the Free Borg that we were trying to help to rebel. And so now we have a rebellion on the Borg cube, or possibly all Romulans on the Borg cube are killed, and you now have Free Borg with a Borg cube that we don't know what they're going to do. But we do know they have a fucking Borg cube at their disposal. And I don't know if you remember what happened at the Battle of Sector 001. Borg cubes are really hard to destroy, and now they're just going to use that. I want to continue to use my inside voice, head of Starfleet Command, but this is an issue for us. Got to get back on with that content. Thanks for the stream, lad. Talk to you later, Trek Culture. I'll be doing a live stream with someone from Trek Culture very shortly. Looking forward to that. We just got to get timing. If the Reclamation Project is not really about the synth, but it's only a small Tal Shiar cell, they might cover all that up. They may try to. Picard is breaking the law. That's fine if Picard's breaking the law. Do you think the Romulans are going to believe that? That was even a point they were talking about getting to the Borg cube, where they were saying, yeah, they didn't send us, but the Romulans aren't going to care. They're not going to believe you. That was a key point of what they were doing. So, regardless of what Starfleet says, the Romulans aren't going to believe them at all. I mean, basically, we may see war between the Romulans and Starfleet. I don't think they'll do that, but yeah, Cerstus, I literally just talked about that. If the Borg turn on the Romulans will use that as a reason to go to war with Starfleet. They'll think it was all a big thing. You know? I don't know. So I've been going on for about, 2 hours. Crazy. I think we're going to end it soon, but what are your guys' last thoughts on this? I'm really curious. Where should we go? Why is the Borg cube called the artifact? I don't know. That's just something they decided to call it. In Voyager, it's mentioned that some Borg ships were damaged by ion storms. Okay. Well, they can, in fact, be damaged by ion storms. That is within their power. But I don't know, guys. I'm on the fence. All right, I want to do another live stream. I'm definitely not going to be able to get a video out. That is not going through. It would be interesting to see some quantum torpedoes. I'll give it a couple more seconds and then see if you guys have anything else, and then I think we'll end it there. They are useless in the 25th century. I agree. I think the Romulans at this point just don't want a war with the Federation. They're probably significantly weaker. They have no homeworlds. Advash have reasons to fight androids. Yeah, but they can still rattle some cages. Give Kitty their own show. I mean, if I can be funded enough that can happen. I hate all the mattress hopping in this series. Now Agnes. Oh yeah. I mean, it's just current era storytelling. Laura, you should review Avenue 5 episodes. What is Avenue 5? I don't even know that I've heard that. Avenue 5 episodes. A confident, controlled, and personable space cruise ship captain tries to get along with everyone. Oh, I love that actor. I don't know that I want to do that, but I love the actor. The Borg will rise again. It'll fix itself. Considering that the Romulans are split in a bunch of factions and they can even control the neutral zone, I don't think them be looking to start a war. Well, again, it was a problem. It was a point. It was a plot point in the episode. They're the ones that brought it up, that the Romulans could go to war with Starfleet. The fact that doesn't make any sense isn't my problem. They're the ones that thought of it. I don't know. Guys, I hope you enjoyed this. Don't forget to rate, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you on the next Lore Reloaded.